If someone's talking, I can't hear anything.
We're on mute and we're live, so we will start in a minute.
Thank you.
When Verizon says it's noon, it's noon.
That's right.
Okay.
Usually, so. Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Lafon,
Here.
Nystrom,
Here.
Pritchard,
Here.
Eben,
Here.
Melhouse.
Here. Okay, the only reason we're here is to get the issuance of the $23 million general obligation bonds. And I believe we have someone from Piper Jaffray here, and go for it.
Yep. So good afternoon, board. This is Matt Gillespie from Piper Sandler nowadays.
Sorry.
That's all right. I still say Piper Jaffray. So some of you I can see are driving at other locations, so you won't be able to necessarily look at the worksheets, which is perfectly fine. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly because I know many of you have been through some of this before and you have other things to get to today as well. And then I'll leave time so that you can ask more questions if you want to. But on the first page, for those of you that can see the document, at the heading at the top, it says report of sale. We did take bids, obviously, for $23 million. We did, after we knew the bids, what the interest rates were, we were able to restructure it to some degree, which I'll explain more as we get to another page, just to make sure that the tax levy did not exceed $4.05, which is the limit. The rating for the school district, about a month ago, your administration went through a rating conference call with Standard & Poor's. That was successful. Your staff did a good job there, and they assigned an A+ rating. A+ is about the highest rating that most schools in Iowa would expect to receive. There is the next notch up, which would be AA-, and there are just a handful of schools that can get to that level. And it's primarily, but not necessarily only, metro schools that have very significant growth rates, et cetera, and wealth levels because of the metro area jobs, et cetera. So the A+ is very good. What you see also, though, is that it says S&P insured AA rating. So the winning bidder, actually both the bidders would have, and the winning bidder did, choose to use bond insurance. So that takes the rating to what the insurance company's rating is, which is 2 notches above yours, and that's the AA. So unless the bond insurance company loses a rating or it has a decline, which does occasionally happen, the bonds then will hold the rating of that insurance company at either AA, where it is now, or if they were to be reduced to AA-, your bonds would still have that rating. If the insurance company's rating were to drop below the school district's, then you would just continue to use the school district's rating at that A+. On this page, you see there were two bidders. That's not unusual. I would like to have seen more. Obviously, we'd like to see 3 to 5 kind of generally, but this is a very large bond issue for Iowa. So that does have some impacts. Many of the bidders that we typically see can't bid on something that's that large. So these bidders were bidding Robert W. Baird and UBS Financial. The low bid from Robert Baird, and we determined that it's a low bid by looking at the true interest rate, which is the number, for those of you on the screen that can see the blue number, 2.001. It's not exactly an average interest rate because it is a weighted average. So weighting the longer term maturities more heavily because you're going to pay that interest for a longer period of time. But it also factors in the fee that each one of those bidders is going to charge. That's called the underwriter's discount, but to you, it's just a fee. So it's not only the interest, but also the fee that's factored into that 2.001. And then you see the second place bidder at 2.02. So very, very close bids, which is exactly what we want to see. In the skinny box there that you see, the rectangle, after we made adjustments to the structure where the principal was all positioned, that true interest rate actually dropped to 1.97. So that's the actual final number. If somebody asks you what rate did you get, the answer would be 1.97. If you go to the next page, this is where you see the structure of the bonds. So I know there's a lot of information on this page. The school board did earlier this spring, as part of your budget, pass what's called a pre-levy resolution in order to force the tax levy into your fiscal year 22 budget, because the bonds couldn't be sold until this time of year. So that was $906,000 that you approved previously as part of your budget. So today we had to make sure that the fiscal year 22 payment did not exceed $906,000. So once we had these new interest rates, I was able to push actually more principal into fiscal year 22 to consume as much as we could. The bonds are issued in $5,000 increments, so we can never get right to the exact number. But we also then position more principal into many of those early maturities, because even though the interest rate in the early maturities is higher than what we expected, actually I shouldn't say what we expected, what we used in our estimate, the interest rate on the longer maturities, which is actually more important, that was lower than we expected. So that allowed the overall interest costs to be reduced very significantly. So in the far right column of the worksheet, the yellow column, for those of you that can see a color copy, you see that using today's property value, and that's important to remember, this is only looking at it from today's point of view. It looks like your tax levy will be right at about $4.05 through fiscal year 32 when your other older bonds are repaid. And then after that, it would drop to around $3.45. So that $3.45-ish cent area that you see, we originally thought that was going to be around $3.85 to $3.90. So the overall lower rates allowed that tax rate to be lower. And of course, your property value will probably increase. It will increase over long periods of time. So by the time you get out 2 or 3 years from now, you won't even be seeing the $4.05 levy. It will have dropped down to some lower number. Although in the future at budget time, the school board could choose to surplus levy, which would be keeping the tax levy at $4.05, and all the extra money that you can generate, you use to apply and pay off the debt early. That's a very good idea to do if you can tolerate that levy. Other school districts, there's about 40 districts that are doing it, saving millions and millions of dollars in interest. So it's something the board should definitely consider, but not something you have to think about or do anything about today. Looking at, first of all, the red dash line that goes across the middle of the page, that's the call date of these bonds. So beginning in 2028, you could begin to pay these off early. You could also refinance them if that's feasible to do, or you could restructure them if that's necessary. And then at the very bottom of that page, this is where you see what's probably most important to you guys. Excuse me. So this bond is producing, the bid is producing a $784,000 premium, which is paid to you up front. And the reason that's coming to you is because you are paying these 5% interest rates in the first several years. This is very common. It's been this way for literally almost a decade. We've seen this type of structure because interest rates are just so low. I'll try to explain that on another page, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time because most of you probably don't care much about it. But just know that the bond itself is generating this very large premium. So the net amount that you can spend on projects just from the bond alone is $23,326,000. So even after you've paid the underwriter, after you've paid your lawyer, after you've paid Piper and Standard & Poor's and all of those other costs, you're actually still generating $326,000 more than the principal amount you're issuing. Now, you can see on this schedule, The estimated cost of your project, obviously the board is aware that that has risen some over time. The current estimate is about $25,700,000. So even the bond won't cover all of it, but you do have cash and sales tax and PEPAL that will easily fund the shortfall, which is expected to be about $2.3 million. We expected originally that the 23,326,000 number. We originally estimated that to be 22,550,000. So there's about $800,000 more, which is coming basically from the premium. The total interest, if you never pay this bond off early, you will have paid $6.6 million of interest. And we originally estimated that to be $9 million of interest. So these rates are producing a significantly lower tax burden and interest costs to your property owners, which is very positive as well. The next page just actually breaks out what we just looked at in the bottom left-hand corner. It just is a different format, but it's the same numbers. The one thing that is broken out here is the insurance premium. So on the prior page, you could see the total underwriter's discount of $315,000, but now you can see it broken out that the underwriter is choosing to pay that insurance premium to get that AA rating of $66,000. So that comes out of their pocket, but really obviously it's coming out of yours because all of this money comes out of the district's pocket from the bond. But otherwise they could have bid the same bid without the insurance and they still could have charged $315,000 and kept the rest of it as their profit. But of course you would have had higher interest rates assigned there. The page after that is just a clean version of the debt service schedule. So it doesn't show future tax rates or any of those things. It doesn't show the costs of the project. It's just the annual payments or the semi-annual payment schedule. The page after that is what we call the pricing worksheet. And again, this is, I'm going to try to explain this premium. If in a minute or two, when I'm done talking about this, you are totally lost and don't understand it, that's perfectly okay. You don't have to understand this, but I try to always explain it because when somebody is going to pay you $780,000 up front for no reason that you've ever heard of, there's usually some people that have questions about that. So what's happening, and I'm going to use the very first maturity as the example I talk about. So the bonds that are maturing in 2022, you are paying 5% to those bondholders. That's the rate, or what we also call the coupon. But that bondholder is not earning 5%. If they were, you can imagine everybody in the world would be clamoring to buy your bonds because you know that if you put your money in the bank today, you're lucky to earn 0.5%. And in fact, these bondholders are earning 0.12% on that first maturity. Even though you're paying them 5%, they're only earning 0.12 because if you look at the price there, they're paying you $1,033.45. We moved the decimal place over. But next summer, when you pay them back, you're only going to pay them back $1,000 per bond. That $33.45 is what's called the premium, and that's being paid to you to entice you to pay them the 5% interest for the next year. It's all done for tax reasons for the most part, and I can't even explain to you all of those reasons. It's just part of the way these are done. In this particular case, as in most cases, this is a positive thing because it's not preventing you from issuing the bonds, and you're still getting a better result than what we had projected because I intentionally did not project in a premium so that we would be able to perform and show you that you could meet the expectations that you had, which in fact you have a better result than that. So again, if you don't understand that, that's okay. But going to the last page, we have just the timeline itself, which we're completely through for the most part. So we're at July 14th. We are reviewing the bond right now. I assume here in just a minute or two, you're going to approve that. At your meeting on August 9th, I think that is still your regular board meeting. That's when you will pass the other legal resolutions that your attorney will send to you. Same types of resolutions that the board has passed for every other bond issue you've done. It's the same process. Those will be completed on the 9th. And then on the 24th of August, that's when the 23 million is going to come into the bank and you'll be able to start spending it. You did receive, I think, earlier today already, $230,000, which is called the good faith deposit. It's like earnest money when you buy a house. That low bidder had 2 hours to wire that to your bank I don't know if you can see that they've wired it, but they always do. I don't have any question about it. So that will be deducted from when they pay the rest of the money in August. But that $230,000 that you got today, you can begin if you need to or want to pay architect's fees or other costs that you may have incurred, or you can reimburse other funds if you use general fund, for example, to fund some of those things. That's possible. So any questions? I did go through that fairly quickly, but any questions that the board has about the process, what happened today, what will happen at your next meeting, or what's going to go on over the next 20 years throughout the course of the bond repayment?
Questions from board members? Jeremy, any questions?
Are those rates locked? Are those bid rates locked in right now? They're not going to change
They will
until
be
we
locked
sell
in as soon as you vote yes in a few minutes. Yes, that is
Okay.
correct. They will not change for the entire 20 years unless you refinance or restructure them for some reason of your choosing.
Matt, any questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, Pat, any questions?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, Pam?
All right.
You guys have any questions here? You guys understand this?
Yep.
I appreciate your presentation, Matt. This actually looks better than what I thought it was
Yeah,
gonna be.
it
I
is
think
a very good result. And actually, not that you necessarily care to beat your friends and neighbors, but Bondurant for ours sold a bond issue almost identical to this on Monday. And just as a few examples, I didn't write everything down. They have the same rating that you do, A+, you have A+. Their underwriter, which did not bid today, probably because they bought the Bondurant for our bonds, they did not choose to use insurance. So that you would assume their rates would be a little bit higher, and they were. So in that first year, just as examples, where your yield was 0.12, theirs was 0.22. And then going out to the 20th year, yours is 2% and theirs was 2.15%. So that is really the difference of that insurance that you can see happening there. So it's worthwhile when those don't seem like really huge differences, and they're not. But when you're applying it to $20 million, those are big differences.
What did they get for average percentage?
There, I did not write it down, but it was, I want to say it was 2.05-ish. I don't remember the
We got a
exact
little
number.
bit.
It's
10 or
slightly,
so.
yeah, slightly better than theirs, which we would expect because the insurance wasn't used.
Okay, any further discussion? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion here.
Yep, and I will actually do that for you. But at first, is there any other discussion? Sounds like there is none. So I'm going to paraphrase the resolution, which is acceptable for me to do. We just need one board member to so move what I say. Another board member needs to second that. And then Mitch, you will have to have a roll call vote. So the resolution before you is this: directing the sale of $23 million of general obligation school bonds series 2021 to Robert W. Baird and Company of Red Bank, New Jersey.
Do I hear a motion to approve? Okay, Pat, thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mrs. Stevens, seconded by Dr. Nystrom to approve the motion for bond sales to Robert W. Baird as previously recorded by Mr. Gillespie. Roll call vote, please.
Elton,
Yes.
Nystrom,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stephen,
Yes,
Melhouse.
Yes.
That is all you needed to do today from a legal standpoint. I don't think you have any other agenda items. You can adjourn the meeting if you'd like.
Anyone have anything else they want to discuss today? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn this meeting. Thank you everyone for joining us remotely and for coming in today. Matt, thank you for all your good work, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.